Hello everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to kick off this presentation with you today. Our first slide is titled, Why the Groups We Belong to Shape Who We Are and How We See the World. We'll explore how our social identities influence our perspectives and behaviors. The subtitle, I, You, Us, and We, hints at the different levels of social connection we'll discuss. We'll also look into social identity theory to understand these dynamics better. Over the next few slides, we'll dive into how our belonging to various groups impacts our sense of self and our view of others. So, let's get started. We are social creatures, which means that much of who we are is shaped by our interactions and relationships with others. We tend to define ourselves, at least in large part, by where we fit within the social world around us. Our personal identities are incredibly complex, and they're influenced by many factors: our upbringing, the experiences we go through, and even our genetics. But one of the most interesting things is that a significant part of how we see ourselves doesn't just come from inside us. It actually stems from the groups we belong to. Whether it's our family, our community, or our cultural groups, these affiliations help shape our self-concept. This brings us to a timeless question that's been asked across the ages. Who am I? It's a question that invites us to explore not just our individual traits, but also the social context that helps define us. Throughout this presentation, we'll see how understanding this dynamic is key to understanding human behavior and the way we connect with others. So, what sets us apart in social psychology is how we tend to compare in-groups, those groups we identify with, to out-groups, which are the groups we see as different or separate from us. This process of comparison is central to understanding social identity. We often seek positive self-esteem through our group membership, meaning that feeling connected to a group can boost how we see ourselves. This need for belonging is a fundamental human motivation. Developed by Henry Tadgeful and John Turner in the 1970s, social identity theory helps explain this behavior. It shows that our sense of who we are isn't just based on individual traits, but also heavily influenced by the groups we belong to. This theory is a key part of social psychology because it links our personal identity to our social environment, shaping our attitudes and behaviors based on group dynamics. So, in the context of our overall theme, it reminds us how vital group membership and social comparisons are informing our self-concept. So, on this slide, we're looking at how we compare our in-groups to out-groups to keep a positive social identity and maintain healthy self-esteem. Essentially, we tend to see our own groups more favorably, which helps us feel good about ourselves. Next, we have social comparison. This is about how we adopt the norms, values, and behaviors of the groups we identify with. When we're part of a group, its standards influence how we act and how we see ourselves. Then there's social identification. This is the process of sorting ourselves and others into different groups, whether by nationality, profession, hobbies, or other categories. It helps us simplify our complex social world into manageable mental maps, making it easier to navigate relationships and social expectations. Finally, these three pillars, social comparison, social identification, and social categorization, are the foundation of social identity. They work together to shape how we see ourselves and others, which is a key theme in understanding human behavior and social dynamics. Now, let's talk about how this dynamic influences our perceptions and behaviors. When we see groups we don't belong to, what we call outgroups, we might view them with skepticism or distance. Sometimes, this happens unconsciously, and it can lead to unfair biases. These biases are often rooted in the way we perceive those outside our group. On the other hand, we naturally tend to favor our in-group, those we identify with. This favoritism can mean we extend more trust, loyalty, and positive assumptions toward our own group members. It's a common psychological tendency that helps strengthen our bonds, but can also contribute to us seeing others less favorably. This us versus them mentality, this distinction between in-groups and out-groups, is fundamental to understanding social dynamics. Recognizing this helps us see how group identities influence our attitudes and actions, which is a key part of understanding bias and prejudice in broader contexts. So why do groups matter so much? Well, this slide provides a framework to understand how we see ourselves within a broader, shared community. First, we have identity. When we're part of a group, our achievements and the positive image of the group itself can really boost our own self-esteem. It's like we draw strength from that collective success. Next is self-worth. Shared goals and missions give us direction, motivation, and a sense of collective purpose. When we're working towards something together, it helps us feel more meaningful and connected. And then there's purpose. Being part of a group fosters a sense of connection and unity. It reminds us that we're not alone in the world, that we belong somewhere, and that our contributions matter within that community. So overall, groups are powerful because they shape our identity, boost our self-esteem, give us clear goals, and create a sense of belonging. All of these elements reinforce the importance of community in our lives. Recognizing how group membership influences behavior is key to creating more welcoming environments. When we understand social identity theory, or SIT, it helps us develop empathy because we begin to see that others' group identities are just as meaningful as our own. This awareness encourages us to value diversity instead of seeing differences as threats. On the other hand, overemphasizing these group differences can lead to biased perceptions and unfair treatment of those who are outside our own group. Stereotyping and prejudice often stem from this tendency to focus on what divides us rather than what unites us. But the real power lies in shifting that perspective, transforming stereotypes into understanding and empathy. When we see beyond surface differences, we can foster genuine connections. This slide underscores the importance of applying these insights from social identity theory to build more inclusive and compassionate communities, turning awareness into positive action. These 8 are a starting point. Many other group memberships contribute meaningfully to who we are. When we think about our identities, it's important to recognize that factors like sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, religion, gender, race, ethnicity, age, and ability all play a significant role. While we each belong to countless groups, these 8 core identity dimensions are widely recognized as the most influential in shaping our social experience. They form what we refer to as the Big 8 social identities. Understanding these helps us better appreciate the diversity and complexity of individual identities, especially within the context of the Elon University framework. It reminds us that identity is multifaceted and that these dimensions influence how we see ourselves and how others see us. Our experiences are shaped by the complex, dynamic interplay of all our group memberships at once. What that means is that each of us belongs to multiple social groups, whether that's based on race, gender, age, religion, or other identities, and these don't exist in isolation. Instead, they interact in ways that influence how we see ourselves and how others perceive us. Lived experience is layered. This means that the identity that feels most prominent or relevant can shift depending on the social situation we're in. For example, in some contexts, our racial identity might come to the forefront, while in others, our professional or gender identity might be more salient. This brings us to the idea that context shapes salience. The environment we're in, the people around us, and the specific circumstances all influence which part of our identity is most visible or impactful at any given moment. And importantly, we don't belong to just one group. We hold multiple social identities simultaneously. These intersect and influence each other, creating a unique, nuanced experience for each of us. This is the core of intersectionality, understanding that our identities are interconnected, and that the way we experience privilege or discrimination is shaped by this complex web of group memberships. So when we think about identity, it's not static or singular. It's layered, shifting, and context-dependent, which is essential to understanding how people experience the world and how we can create more inclusive environments. Let's talk about how we can use this awareness to build stronger, more equitable communities. First, building inclusion means questioning our in-group favoritism and out-group assumptions. It's about being mindful of how we might unconsciously favor certain groups and challenge those biases. Next, challenging bias requires us to understand how our memberships, whether social, cultural, or identity-based, shape our worldview. Recognizing these influences helps us see beyond our default perspectives. Finally, understanding our social identities through social identity theory offers us a powerful lens to examine group dynamics and intergroup tensions. When we recognize our own social identities and the unconscious comparisons we make, we open the door to greater empathy. By doing this work, we're essentially building a better we, creating communities that are more inclusive, understanding, and resilient. This approach aligns perfectly with our overall goal of fostering connection and equity among all members.